It's our weekly sports episode. Well, you might as well call it our infamous podcast about sports and stuff. Where on this podcast you get to hear a little bit of information about what's going on in the sports world, what's going on in the video game world, a little bit of the technology information, get a little bit of a music knowledge chat, two of our personal faves that we do on the show, the artist spotlight, and of course the infamous ass of the week. So stick around. You might actually enjoy the episode. Oh my gosh, I was late and we're kind of delayed, but we still gonna go with this podcast. Hopefully we won't get this cut short. Past podcast back again. Got my co-host back, thankfully. He's recovered and recouped. So
yeah, back at it again.
Back at it again. He may have tuned in last week, and I told him after the fact, I said last week was a struggle because I was here solo dolo rocking the episode. And I've mentioned to him, and as you all know, we're doing a new format with the episodes where we're doing sports first and then talking about the stuff afterwards. So it's quite a bit of course, as always, quite a bit of sports and a little bit of stuff, and just we got a very unique ass of the week, as I was unexpected to have that happen. As we do each week, podcast is posted on Spreaker.com. And, of course, the microphone we're using is the Blue Yeti microphone. And I have it set up properly so you'll hear him much better if you didn't hear him last time when he was on the show. So we have, and I'm going to say this to Dimitri, and I'll say it for myself. When I first was looking at doing podcasting for this week, the first thing went through my head was, okay, we really don't have any topics this week. And by probably Wednesday or Thursday, thoughts kind of swirled, some ideas came about, and that's kind of going to generate what we have this week for the podcast. So the first topic we're going to get into is since last Saturday was the end of the draft, and we've had a week to kind of dwell on everything. Jay Cutler has decided to go into newscasting permanently. Tony Romo is now going to be golfing, and with all of those minor aftermaths and added pieces of information, we have the aftermath or the grading scale that is done by SB Nation, and they're always a good source for getting a lot of your sports news. They've kind of broken down every team's draft grades or draft picks as to who did good. Looking at this list is interesting to me because I broke down and I kind of looked at everybody's grading process that they did. They gave the Vikings and the Redskins the highest grade, which was weird because, Vikings you never know, and Redskins it was kind of, they're kind of having to fix whatever they can with all they've had going on this past season.
Well, they got a sleeper pick too with Jonathan Allen, dropped from 2 to like 20 something that they picked him at.
Yeah, so that helped them out a lot. Yeah. Now you had mentioned right before we got on the show, because this was going to be one of my questions, so it kind of worked out being coincidental. How did we do because we're always going to be supportive of, it's 32 teams in the league, but we're kind of taking it from the personal perspective. Like, how do you feel your team did in the draft this year?
I feel like we came out better to better fit for next season, because we picked up some free agents already. Yeah. But now they picked up another defensive pass rusher if he can stay healthy. McKinley out of UCLA. Yeah. And they also picked up a cornerback who could play like the slot. Okay. Or like a 2-corner. The guy out of San Diego State. His name is Casey. And then also they picked up Duke Riley out of LSU, which is a linebacker who's nice as well too. Yep. He's strong and he's got power too. So he's strong in speed. Yeah. Which I like. What about your team? How do you feel?
Carolina, I was concerned because I ain't gonna lie. Like when I first saw McCaffrey go off the board as our first pick, I was like, "Oh, we're getting a running back." So that means that's turning into Cam's not gonna have to run as much, but we already know Cam's gonna be stubborn and run the ball. I hate to say it, I'm always, as anyone knows me for saying, I'm the biased but honest fan. So that being said, McCaffrey coming in helps out because we really haven't had a core running game. So hopefully he'll get some minutes and come in. We filled all of our positions. Deshaun Hall from Texas A&M, being our late pick was pretty good. Samuel will be coming in. You know, we've got most of our spots filled. So it's going to really help our offense.
Yeah, I like what they did with McCaffrey and Samuel, just because they're both kind of quick and shifty.
Right.
So as you said before, like, you know, Cam Newton likes to run the ball a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to help with the short passing. You know, like Tom Brady likes to short pass and things of that nature. Yeah. I feel like that will help out with him.
Yep, that's true. I truly am appreciative of technology for the win. I love how things just happen where you think it's test 1 2 1 2. Okay, now it's gonna start recording. All right, I'm gonna keep an eye on this program, and I'm gonna finish this. And I don't care if this program wants to be a douchebag, a cornball, or whatever. We're gonna continue the podcast. We were talking earlier about our teams and their respective picks. Dimitri had mentioned Atlanta doing pretty well, and I was going into, I guess, Carolina's tumultuous yet positive picks, and I guess the podcast or the program decided to say, you know what you're not going to do is talk about your team because they're not doing as good as you think they are. So from what I've seen, to answer your question, I kind of briefly may have answered in the last part, but if not, I'll edit it because that's just how stubborn I am. I feel as though Carolina actually did pretty good in the draft. Picking up CMC, as they've termed him, was a huge pickup on Christian McCaffrey. He'll be helping having him and Cam Newton in the backfield, you know, as a 1-2 punch. You can't beat that. So I really look forward to that.
I like them too. I like the picks. I like the picks with the first two picks that you guys had.
Yeah.
With McCaffrey and Samuel.
Yeah.
Because they're both short options.
Right.
That will help Cam Newton not have to, you know, always run and get as many hits. Because, you know, he's usually leading the league with hits on the quarterback.
Yes.
Other than probably like Andrew Luck or something.
Yes.
So I feel like that will help out the offensive game and help spread the field more too with Kelvin Benjamin, Greg Olsen, create more weapons for the whole team.
Yeah. Now, they did mention special teams, and I know that was like a big deal for us last year because Ted Ginn was kind of a no-show last year. He was kind of okay, but
probably had to play here and there.
It was like it wasn't really like much of a. It wasn't like the season before when it was like Super Bowl status. It was like, okay, Ted Ginn, hey, what's going on? How you doing? And this year's kind of been. But I mean, this past season, and in all fairness, I mean, literally, and I say this with a straight face. I mean, we won 6 games, so I knew it was.
Only positive outlook probably was like Greg Olsen.
Yeah, I mean Olsen came to play, and then on the other side of it, you had Luke was playing pretty good.
He got hurt though,
right? And then with that injury, that played a big
timeline.
So I'm gonna go ahead and record this as an entrance into the podcast because it was clipped, and I kind of was a little upset about it because I wanted to make sure that this was added and addressed. The part that you're gonna hear. The question that was asked to me by Dimitri was regarding the Chicago Bears trading all the way up, and I'm using the terms as he stated it. They traded up from the 3rd pick to get the 2nd pick, and to use that pick to get Trubinsky, and he wanted my thoughts on that. So when you hear the podcast, you're going to kind of hear it break away from that conversation or kind of answer the question regarding that, but I want to make sure I address that little clip. And just to kind of add this in as well as an insert, I do apologize that it's going to kind of sound like everything's broken down, like there was multiple takes of different setups. The program was being a little funny today, and things happen, so you can't really, you can't, as the saying goes, you can't control the unknown. So I just want to apologize to everyone for that because that's not fair to you all as listeners. And that's not fair to me as being a podcaster because I do want to give you all good quality. So I just wanted to address that. So when you hear the conversation addressed, it's going to be about the Trubinsky story as far as him leaving North Carolina to go to the Chicago Bears.
For the coach as well as like the GM that you kind of have to be good within the next couple of years, like next 3-4 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or so trending upward.
So with that pick, I'll be realistically honest. I feel as though Chicago had to answer the benefit of the pick. I didn't see a big benefit in doing it. That's just my personal opinion. Now on the other side of it, I feel as though Trubinsky, you kind of, that was a blind pick.
Well, if he ends up being good, I feel like it's a great pick.
Right, and that's and you always now football, and this is where I'm the football fan, but I'm the learning fan of it. with basketball, we talk about it all the time. Basketball is usually 3 years. You can kind of pan out and see things. Football is a little longer. Do you think it's? Do you think it's longer? Or do you think it's shorter?
I feel fans don't give them longer. The association generally is not going to give you longer as well too. Like if you see like in the past, usually you get like 3-4 years. I'm saying like to be at least trending upward, trending towards something good.
Right.
I'm pretty sure what Cam Newton's in is with 5th year now, 6th year.
Yeah, about a 6th year. So
and he went to the Super Bowl in his like 4th, 5th year.
Right.
So he was trending upward towards it too. You know what I mean? So you always want to be trending upward. Otherwise, it's kind of questionable.
Right.
And like a GM or coach could end up losing their job. I just feel like they had a lot more needs to fulfill than just the quarterback. Because sometimes it depends on situation. If you don't have anyone around you. You like in the like football, it's more of a team sport, so you can't really just be like one person.
One person going to make the impact. Yeah, you're right. So I got a unique question because they put them side by side coincidentally. The Bills were a B-, the Panthers were a C+. Based on how the draft went, if I remember correctly, the Bills ended up firing a big name. The Bills did some shifting in their upper management. And it was an impact because it was involving Carolina. I want to find the story on it, and I don't want to like just throw it out there because I feel like it played an impact, or it definitely had a role involving the draft. But while you're looking that up, it's because I know I'm already gonna have a problem with trying to get everything since I'm having technical difficulties left and right.
They fired their GM, I believe.
Yes.
Bills fired GM Whaley.
Yes.
And then they fired their entire scouting staff.
Yeah. Because they feel like they did. It's almost as if it was some. I don't want to say it was a manipulation in trades or manipulation in picks. It was just like they picked. Like the Bills picked good from what SB Nation stated. Well, okay. I'm going to segue away from that a little bit, and then I'll ask you this. Do you feel. And this is just from how, from observing the page and kind of looking over what SB Nation stated. Do you feel they got the grading right with the grades they gave teams?
Some teams I would say yes. Mm-hmm. Others were more questionable. Like with the Patriots, they give them, I believe it was a B+.
Yes.
I didn't see they always generally don't pick up like. You could say cute positions or anything like that, like wide receivers.
Yeah, they always kind of do the generic.
Pick up like fancy people,
right?
There were some questionable ones. I like the Jets picks, and they gave them like a C+.
Okay.
But overall, I'd say yeah. They did pretty well.
Okay.
How do you feel about it?
I feel like they did okay, but I feel like it was a weird. Like they were trying to get it right, but it wasn't. Some picks were off because it was like, or some grades were off because it's like.
I see that too.
From what I'm looking at, and this is just sheer observation, it's almost like doing great, and this is going to be the weirdest analogy, but it's the best way I can look at it. You know how you do grades in school, and you want to make every student feel like they did something?
That's kind of what it was, yeah.
Some teams could have got D's, but they kind of made it like, okay, we'll give them a C+ or a C- to kind of make it as like I've looked at all of the teams that were graded. I don't think anybody was below a C.
Nobody was below a C.
Nobody got a C-, of course. Mm-hmm. So it was like it was kind of graded as is, and just kind of made to be what it's expected. Like I had mentioned earlier about the Viking, getting an A, and it was like, okay, they got Dalvin Cook.
I like that pickup.
Yeah, it was a big pick. They got Pat Allen at O-line. That'll be helpful because, as we know, last year their QB went down, so that was a huge blow. Him coming back will be helpful.
And they picked up like a D lineman and Jaleel Johnson. Yeah. And in the 5th rounder, they got another offensive lineman.
Right. Let's see. The and of course Patriots. It was like the Patriots used, like you mentioned, it's like Patriots utilize drafts to trade and get other names in.
They did a lot of their stuff before the draft, like against Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Cooks, and Coney Ely.
Right.
They did a lot of things before the draft.
Yeah.
But we'll have to just see how these players play before,
This is true. So speaking of players, and this was a unique story because now I don't want to call this a rivalry because it's way too early, and I don't think it's going to be justified as one yet because there's no telling what's going to come out of him going to this team, but it looks as though Jamaal Charles is now with the Broncos. And a coincidental story is he's always been a Broncos fan. Growing up, he was, big into Elway. Mm-hmm. From what he mentioned, he had retired. Let's see, Elway retired. It's been a minute now. He was wearing. They showed a picture of Jamaal Charles wearing like an Elway jersey, kind of support. Showing support for the team. Mm-hmm. For Denver all along. They feel as though having this occur will kind of shed light to a possible. I'm saying possible only because they play them twice a year. Yeah. So it'll be like somewhat of a small rivalry between those teams.
If he can stay healthy, I feel like that was a good pickup.
Yes, because last year he only played 3 games.
I believe last 2 years he's only played like 6 games total.
That's even worse.
So, yeah, it's been bad for him, and that's not speaking about his whole career. No. He's had injuries his whole career.
Yeah, still, despite that, he's had 5. Still have 5,000-yard rushing seasons is not bad.
No, yeah, definitely.
And I think the Chiefs kind of were okay with moving on from him strictly because they went 12-4 despite him not being on the team, so that still worked out pretty good for him. Charles, he did make a statement of saying, "I'm just happy I get to play them twice a year." I'll just leave it at that. On the link that's shared, it's a coincidence because they did talk to Andy Reid about it, and Andy Reid was straight up and saying, he liked Jamaal Charles as a player. So it kind of makes you wonder if he really wanted him to leave, or if it was more of a management decision. It's always
possibly.
You know what I'm saying? Like I think about things like that because it's business. It's always gonna be business first.
Yeah.
So with this trade, it was no exception. Kind of swinging away from the NFL, and like I said, I'm not rushing stories because I was late. It's just some of the stories are kind of like they tell themselves. Mm-hmm. Our next hit is kind of a 2-for-1. We'll save the fourth part of the story last, but we are officially in the semifinals of the NBA playoffs. Last week. We were waiting to see whether the Clippers of old would show up or the regular Clippers who can't get out of the first round showed up. And, of course, the latter occurred, and the Jazz moved on to basically get mollywopped by Golden State twice. And looks like Game 3 is tonight. And I got a feeling even though it's in Utah, I wouldn't be surprised if they win that game as well. Boston and Washington... that series is 2-1. Boston is ahead. They won their 2 at home. It's kind of been like a home and home battle
this whole season.
Right,
the home team has won every game.
Yeah,
and it's been a physical matchup.
Game. Yeah, because Game 1 was the tooth incident, right?
Is the tooth incident? Yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas got a tooth knocked out and still continued to play. I want to say it was Game 2.
He got 53 points.
Right, yeah, the 53 points, which that was a huge stat. I think, did you share that stat with me about, somebody shared a stat where he, as far as scoring goes, he scored, like he's second all time in like playoff points, like a amount of points in a single game, ahead of.
So, and he's only behind what's it called? I know Michael Jordan's the top with 63 points.
Right,
against the Celtics.
Yeah. But I think even players who played for the Celtics, like Bird, Pierce, all of those guys, he's like second on their like on the Celtics all time. I think.
I want to say he's first actually. I want to say he's actually first on that scoring list now.
Okay.
Because I don't believe anybody's. There's a few people who haven't even topped 50 points in like a postseason game.
Yeah.
It was like Kobe, Karl Malone, Shaq. There was a lot of few Hall of Famers that hadn't even topped it.
Gotcha. Okay. So while we're stat checking, do we get the brooms out Sunday for the Cleveland-Toronto series?
I would say I want to give them a game. However, we saw this last year with them, and Cleveland practically gave them 2 games when LeBron was trying to get Kevin Love involved.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think they're just going to go ahead and sweep them. I don't think this is much of a matchup. I thought they may win last game in Game 3, but they got tore up in the fourth quarter. It was like 36-17 in the fourth quarter.
Right.
And that just shows like the Cavaliers could just put it on at any moment.
Yeah, this is always that question that everybody has, and I believe this was addressed last week on the podcast about when a team gets in the finals or gets in the playoffs, do they turn that switch on? And as of right now, I mean, it's nothing against Indiana. They knocked off Indiana with no problem. And I mean, Indiana was kind of projected as a team that could give Cleveland problems, but they didn't. Toronto, Cleveland, that same process with that series. They're not really too fazed by Toronto, but I don't know. I feel like I'm the weird guy or the bad guy because I'm literally giving them the boot. I just see.
What about Utah?
I don't see Utah winning. See, I'm wanting to say I feel like they're going to get one game.
It depends on. To be honest, I feel like it depends on Golden State. If they come out lackadaisical, you know how they like to just throw the ball around sometimes.
Yeah, kind of say, all right, let's give everybody some points and just some stats.
If they're missing shots, and like the other game, like Iguodala like do like a pass like between his legs or something.
Yeah,
and they went out of bounds. Like if they're doing that,
then they'll kind of be nonchalant about it.
Yeah, then they may lose a game. But I don't see them losing two though.
Yeah, I'll say one. I'll say one loss for you. I mean, I'll say one loss. Golden State will give up one.
Question. How nervous are you about your series with the Rockets and the Spurs?
So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this because this is a very interesting story, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's already like San Antonio's series to win, and I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna say it that way, even with the Tony Parker injury, because I know that's the other part of this story. That's why I was saving them for last. Parker is out for the remainder of the playoffs. He has a torn meniscus. I want to make sure I'm giving him the correct injury. Yeah, ruptured. Wait, let me make sure I got my anatomy right. Ruptured quadriceps tendon. If I have any of my nurses listening, y'all don't judge me because I already know. But yes, I have a friend of mine who's been talking to me with this game, and I'm gonna say to you what I've said to him. Whoever wins this series, and this is a bold statement because I don't see Houston winning it now. Whoever wins this series could possibly win the Western Conference. But it's a long stretch only because I know Golden State is like a scary threat.
I don't see. My thing with that is I only think one team in the West could beat the Warriors or take them far. Uh-huh. I think it's Houston, to be honest.
You think so?
I think Houston has the firepower
right
to compete with them because no team's really going to stop the Warriors. Let's be real. You're going to have to outshoot them.
Yes.
That's why the Cavs have been good with them because they can actually kind of defend them. Mm-hmm. The only team that's kind of can defend them and they can actually shoot with them.
True.
I think Houston could be a team that can kind of push Golden State.
Okay.
I don't think the Spurs can, to be honest.
Yeah, the Spurs, I mean, and this was a friend of mine who's been talking to me on Facebook. He's addressed this with me numerous times. He said the young Spurs showed up. And you really don't realize how important that is because when you get the Kawhi Leonard, the LaMarcus Aldridge, even in his years of playing David Lee, your guys who are able to still kind of run the floor, Patty Mills, like all of those guys, if they come in and do their part, you're good to go. Now, getting Ginobili, if you're looking for Ginobili to give you 20 points, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen at all. But to answer your main question, because I feel like I dodged it, am I concerned about Houston in this series? Yes. Yes, we're down 2-1. Yes, we're in Houston. I'm still concerned.
If they win the next game, though, they got their home court back. Oh wait, no, they still lost it. Lost the game. They lost.
Yeah, we lost. We gave away home court advantage
because we won game 3.
Yep, because we had when we won game 1, it was okay. And I mean, from what I've observed with the series, I'm going to talk about it as it is.
27-2.
Right. I mean, Harden was out there. He was playing ball. Kawhi Leonard was a no-show. Aldridge really didn't have a strong game. Game 2. It was like, okay, Harden, you're done. You're not going to do us any damage. I think he scored 13. And Kawhi Leonard that was his show-out game. He broke, had a breakthrough. Then you get to game 3.
They let Harden go off, but then they shut down everybody else.
Exactly. And if you go back, because you being a Lakers fan, because I can talk about this and understand it a lot better. When teams get into playoffs, sometimes they run a unique strategy. When Detroit played y'all in the finals that year, they won the championship. They made it the Kobe, score all the points you want. Shaq, anytime you touch the ball, we're not letting you score. Everybody else, they left them open, and it was kind of like it was just like shooting in the barnyard. Like it was no chance.
They were already a dysfunctional team,
right?
So yeah,
because that was the fight of at that time. It was the fight of number one. That is in this case, it's a lot different because I mean Harden is the guy,
but they don't really have much.
They don't have a two
who can create. Yeah, like Lou Williams can create, but he's coming off the bench.
He's coming off the bench, and Eric Gordon is not. You're not getting the same Eric Gordon you got.
And Lou Williams creates for himself too.
Right,
it's different.
Yeah. So,
back to an earlier point though.
Okay.
Isaiah Thomas is second. You had it right before. Second in Boston scoring in playoff history behind John Havlicek. He scored 54.
Okay.
He's 14th, tied for 14th overall.
Yeah, because I knew somebody had threw that stat at me, and I was like, why do I feel like I remember it? And it was big. I was like, to be in the names of the Pierces, the Birds, that's a huge thing to me.
You know how I said he's tied for 14th?
Right.
6 of the higher scores come from Michael Jordan. I just want to put that out there. That's just a crazy stat.
Yeah, the Jordan phase. And the Jordan story is going to be recreated later on in this podcast, and I'll go over that in a moment because it's going to be a unique instance as to that, the Jordan reference. So to segue, let me make sure I'm giving... Okay. So this is where I'm going to make this a story, but I'm not going to make this a story because it's still not a confirmed story yet. And I don't like doing... This is where being a podcaster sucks, but it also makes it fun because I like to keep my listeners in tune. There's been a story or a report about Brandon Roy, who used to play in the NBA. He played for the Blazers, Timberwolves, back to the Blazers. He was kind of in and out with his career. He currently coaches Nathan Hale, a high school in Washington. He was able to help Michael Porter Jr. With recruitment, and he was able to get him to attempt to attend Washington and eventually go to Missouri. But we talked about that, and we all know how that went. But since then, there was a uncertain story of whether he was involved in a shooting. And I'm sorry, my random music came in my ear. He was involved. They wanted to confirm whether he was involved in a shooting. There were multiple individuals who were there at the gathering. 2 people, and so there are 3 stories. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I really don't know which story to believe because nothing's been stated from the primary source, who is Brandon Roy. So that's why I shared the story. But when I first found out about it, it was like, okay, Brandon Roy was shot. Okay, cool. I got a story. Then news came about Nathan Hale players are saying that he wasn't involved. They don't know whether he was part of, or they feel like he wasn't part of a shooting, so nothing happened. And then family members came out and stating, he's fine, he's okay, things of that sort. So,
So yeah, that makes it kind of questionable. You don't know what exactly is going on with
right?
Because it wasn't even really, because one was his cousin
right
who had came out. One was his grandma who got a cousin on the phone.
Yeah.
To say he was okay. I mean, to say that he was shot, but he's okay.
Yeah.
And that's really been confirmed.
And that's why like I said, I'm sharing this story, but I'm sharing it because it was just like it caught the storyline of just like, okay, it's Brandon Roy. He's an impact. He was an impact to sports in basketball, and he recovered from numerous injuries, but his career didn't pan out as expected. But he's been coaching, and coaching has kind of been like his, you can almost say his calling in a sense. Yeah. So. My somewhat final story involves ESPN deciding to get rid of a show that I didn't understand why they had in the first place. And I'm not being mean in saying it that way, but I never logically understood what was the benefit of having NFL Insiders if you have NFL Live.
They had a few NFL types of shows. Yeah, I was wondering. I had that question as well too.
I get it. It was a space. It's a space holder. It's something to do. This kind of all pans over from. Did I do this last? You weren't here last week. I don't think last week's episode about the ESPN cuttings. This was adding to the cuttings. This is part of, we need to get rid of a show. It's not really benefiting us. They're not going to get rid of the individuals. They're just removing NFL insiders.
And they got rid of another show, I believe. It was called like Sports Writers or Sports Readers or something of that nature as well too.
Yep.
So
and this is gonna be really crazy because I'm sitting here because I feel like I had this conversation. I can't remember who it was. I was sitting somewhere and I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Y'all know me. I don't give a damn. But it was a story. They replaced the show with The Jump, and The Jump is an NBA based show. It's hosted by, of all people, Rachel Nichols. I'm not a big fan of hers. I'm indifferent. Like
I actually like the show.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
I've seen it.
I got you. I mean, hey, and I'm
privileged to our own opinion. Exactly.
No, I don't have a knock. I think I guess it's the individuals that come on the show. Like they may have like T-Mac, they'll have Scottie Pippen. There was one episode they did
with
where
a lot of different people on there. So
right? Because Pippen was on there one time and he talked with Lonzo Ball, which went in one ear and out the other ear. I'll explain that later. But Rachel Nichols, every time I think of Rachel Nichols, the first thing that comes to my mind is she did an interview. You might remember this when Shaq was with the Lakers, and this is when they were starting to do. ESPN started a trend of doing one-on-one conversations, and they did a conversation with Shaq. Like it was a sit down. Like it's kind of what ESPN does, but they don't do it as often. Where they would sit down and do a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah,
and she broke down. She literally like had a true conversation with Shaq about his career, his future, his plans, things of that sort. And I think it may have been a couple of years, if not a year, before he left. And God, who did he go? Because every time I remember, like after he left LA,
he went to the Heat.
Okay, yeah, that's when he went to the Heat. Okay, but it was like a big story, and it was just like from that point on, she was on ESPN for a minute. She left, went to CNN, and then all of a sudden she came back. And that's why I guess I'm kind of like on the fence with her show or with the process, but. If the ratings are working for it, I guess it'll be a good space fill. The Jump was currently on ESPN2. It'll be starting on ESPN in July.
My question about that is how much coverage are they going to have when they start in July? The NBA season doesn't even start until like the end of September, start of October. That's when like preseason starts.
So July, you're running into like
free agency.
You'll kind of have free agency talk
because that's July 1st.
Yeah, because in July, I think if I'm not mistaken, July 1st is when players can start talking to other teams and figuring out where they want to go. This summer, if I'm not mistaken,
I think it's July 1st to like July 10th. They can start talking. And things like that.
It's not really. It's from what I'm gathering. And correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't going to be like that blockbuster off season for free agency. The only big name I know Durant is talk of the town.
Curry also.
Okay.
Chris Paul may become a free agent.
Yeah.
Blake Griffin may become a free agent.
Okay.
This isn't too big of a summer. I know Paul George becomes a free agent next summer.
Yeah.
LeBron's obviously a free agent too, but he's doing his little one and one thing.
Yeah, kind of adding on as needed.
Yeah, but there's not too many free agents this summer now.
So I mean, it's beyond that. You'll have that conversation. Of course, you got the draft. And I'm sorry, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make sure I address this now since we're speaking about The Jump next week. And I'm upset because I won't be able to see it because usually I always catch it. The NBA Combine draft.
Okay.
A draft combine is next Tuesday.
Okay.
It's from Tuesday through Friday. And I always like talking about it because it's very interesting to see, like, because we've already confirmed Lonzo Ball won't be there. I think Dennis Smith backed out. Malik Monk, I believe, isn't playing. A lot of your top guys aren't going to be playing.
Generally, they don't because people have already seen them play so much that they don't have to prove anything anymore.
Yeah, if anything, they're just trying to vie for a legit draft seeding to be a lottery pick.
Yeah.
Any of your other big names?
Guy out of Kentucky who hasn't played a game yet, Hamidou Diallo. He got a draft invite. He's actually going to be there, so that should be
He needs to go because he's projected as a second-round pick.
I actually saw something the other day where he's projected like late first round.
Oh, he has bumped up and stuff?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. I mean, his only perk is he doesn't have he does not have an agent. If I recall correctly, he still has no agent in regards to the draft. So that's a big deal.
One thing that I like is the projected number one player, Markelle Fultz.
Yes,
he's actually gonna be at the draft combine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I actually like that.
That's actually, and I wouldn't have expected that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought he was gonna back out and just kind of.
Yeah, I didn't think he was gonna go to. I thought the same reason why Alonso's not going. Like, there's nothing that you have to prove. I guess they think.
Yeah, because I feel like most times they don't have them go because they want to make sure that they keep their draft stock high and don't get an injury or have something happen while they're at the combine. So I know you're researching, and it'll probably tie back into the sports, but.
So yeah, you're right. Malik Monk's not going, but De'Aaron Fox is going to be going.
Oh, Fox is going. Okay,
Fox is going. Yeah.
Fox is in his defense. Fox. I mean, I guess because if I'm getting the numbers correctly, it's 60 players.
60 players exactly. Yeah.
Right, 60 players are invited
to match kind of like the 60-player draft.
To 60 draft, yeah, and even worse, out of that 60. A bunch of them aren't going to get drafted. Some of them are literally going to be either overseas playing. I wonder. I don't think Terrence Ferguson is going to participate. I don't know if his name.
I don't think so. I don't think his name's come up.
Yeah, because I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, they'll probably release the list at some point. New feature this year, because I don't recall if I mentioned it last week. They're not going to mention who the lottery picks are until after the combine.
What do you mean? Like they're not gonna do like the draft lottery?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that's May 19th. I just looked that up a second ago.
Yeah.
May 19th, so that's in 2 weeks still.
Yeah, so
2 weeks.
Yeah, so they got a little bit of time to kind of. I guess they'll give teams time to like evaluate what they see at the combine. Which combine is always interesting to me because they do scrimmages. Then they have to do these little random tests like how high can you jump?
Yeah, the vertical,
standing vertical,
vertical.
Yep, you slide. You know how are you on your feet? They don't now. It's interesting, and this is the random thought in my head. They don't do the breakdown like say the NFL does, where they have you do like a Wonderlic test or anything like that. No. But it's more broken down about.
They do interviews with these.
They do interviews. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised they do interviews. I just am intrigued to see some players from this coming draft. And it's not even on that part of it. I'm just addressing that in general. But I want to see how a lot of these guys are going to look like Harry Giles. I hope Harry Giles goes. If he doesn't, it's going to be odd if he doesn't, only because he doesn't really have, before the draft, before the college season even started, he was the number one pick.
Yeah,
he was a shooter, projected number one pick. And between injuries, and I mean, his knees still aren't 100%.
Yeah, you could tell.
Yeah, because I mean, he was, with him playing with Duke, you didn't get the best Harry Giles. And I mean, it was, they were fighting for minutes. There was a story that I was looking at, or a video that I found talking to Grayson Allen, or talking about Grayson Allen, since he's not going this year. Mm-hmm. He's coming back. This is a question for you to just, something to think about. If he had went in his sophomore year.
After sophomore year,
do you think he would have benefited his draft stock better than?
Yep.
Okay.
So some players, it's better for you to go back. Some, it's better for you to leave when you can, because that's going to be your best season. Yeah. Him, that was his best season. That was his time to cash out.
After the clips and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I'll give you that one. And I'm sorry, I always like to remind everyone, this is my segue away from, and I'm not doing this as a rushed episode. Stories are a little different this week. So, this is our segue away from sports. Like I said, we'll return to sports because I feel like the ass of the week is going to consume at least 20 minutes. I don't know. I keep emphasizing that story for a reason, because it's just, he's a special person. Not him, not the person with the shoe, but I'm telling more than I need to. And I'm actually wearing my wearable technology, even though it's older. Apple has presented their numbers from last year based on what they call wearables, and I actually also had a watch on. But they sold more than $5.1 billion. That is a pretty strong number when you compare that to other individuals who are involved when it comes to technology. Apple has always been the innovator when it comes to technology. What's helping them with that number, believe it or not, some of this, I'm going to be quite honest, I'm telling Dimitri, I'm telling you all, you won't see this information in the article that I have shared. Mm-hmm. It's just general info. Them acquiring Beats last year was huge. When Dr. Dre kind of gave it over and said, "Hey, I'll give y'all beats. You know, you don't have to have the Dr. Dre on it anymore, or Beats by Dre." Apple mainly took that idea and said, "Okay, we'll do they kept the Power Beats 2s, the Solo 2s, and then what they did was they said, okay, we'll bring out the next wave, which we talked about, the Beats X, which a lot of people love. My twin loves hers because she almost had a fit because one of her earbuds had broken and it was like the end of the world, but I understood. But the Beats X, the Power Beats 3s, which I own and I love, I was trying to figure out where they were, and that delayed my whole day, but that's not an excuse. And the Solo 3s. Solo 3s had a lower battery life than the Solo 2s, but from what it's gathered, that was kind of like the big push. As the image shows, what everyone has been waiting for and people are still waiting for are the AirPods. AirPods are kind of like Apple's signature earphones or earbuds right now that are very small. Every time I think about it, it always brings me back to my little saying or my little story of, as soon as I order them online, I've lost them. Because if I get them and put them on my ear, I would need something to wear them around my neck or something because they're gone. It's too small. Because I mean, you think if you lose one, I want to say they finally added the feature of the update where you can kind of send like a signal out to the earphone and say, "Hey, I can't find it. Where is it?" Because
that's going to be much needed,
right? Because they're very small. I mean, you think. Let's say like we're looking out in this little area near where we're doing our podcast. This little grassy area, if I was to run back here and one fall out, it's gone. I wouldn't even know where to find it unless I had like some type of a sound detection to cover it. Other wearables or other forms of wearable technology, of course, the Apple Watch. They did bring out the Apple Watch 2. They brought them out in separate series. They brought out the Apple Watch 1 and the Apple Watch 2. As a smart consumer on my end, I decided I didn't need the Apple Watch 2. I went back and got the 1, and it's not even the one that Apple personally had. It was a refurb. Techie tip to anybody: you can't go wrong with buying refurbished products. It's more convenient. Just know what you kind of almost have to know that you get what you pay for, but it's not the worst thing in the world. So I threw all of that information. Well, number one, and this is a coincidence, which I would never even thought of. The Fortune 500 listing, they have Burlington Stores as Fortune 500. You know, they're on the list as number 500. Their revenue is $5.1 billion alone. So if you think that Apple has earned that much last year on just wearable technology, you haven't looked at iPhone, you haven't looked at iPods, tablets, obviously, Mac, all of those devices there. I mean, that's a pretty big number, a pretty big difference. When you break it down in numbers, I know like that's why I found this story and it just kind of caught my attention just to say like, okay, this is not your normal type of technology or techie wear. So, big props to Apple for like making that big jump on those numbers. So I'm now going to hit the music scenario, and these are two albums. Well, this is my bias listening cue, first and foremost. I've been a big Wale fan since 2009, 2010, and he brought out a new album called Shine. The story that I found, it was a coincidence that they gave it this title. They said it's considered to be a dad rap classic. And I guess the only way I can describe that or look at that as a reference is it was more known as, it's got like it's kind of like he brought it back to his original style of music a little bit, but he still kept his current flair. One of the top songs that I've listened to on it is Fashion Week. When they referred to a definition of dad rap, they went to older albums, or not older albums, but albums that had came out, such as Magna Carta, Holy Grail, The Life of Pablo, Coloring Book, from, if I'm not mistaken, Kid Cudi, if I'm thinking right, and For Your Eyes Only. I probably am like way off because usually I know my artists. I'm sorry, Coloring Book was by Chance, and I'm a horrible listener of music if I didn't know that. So they gave a unique reference. They said, as a Wale album, Shine doesn't work. And I can agree with that because Wale albums are a little different. But as a Wale playlist, it soars. So it kind of was just he just kind of put a lot of creativity into this album from what I was able to observe with listening to it.
I did. I liked it too. I liked Running Back featuring
with Lil Wayne.
With Lil Wayne, yeah. Okay. I also like the last song on the album as well too.
Yeah, the last song frustrated me only because I'm one of those people when I listen to albums and I'm like, wait, that's it? Where's the rest of the album? And I'm that person. I'm guilty of doing that. But yeah,
I think it was just a little bit like a shout out to like why he's doing it and how he
got to where he is with his music.
How he appreciates, he appreciates everything because all he needs is his family, his friends, and he's all good.
Right. I can't say nothing. Got me crying over here. Like, all right, listening, check it out. He did, but yeah, I'm glad you. I figured this would be a different spin to the podcast. With throwing some musical spins of some artists. So these are some artists that not just made good music, but it was also like kind of this is 2017. You were more known in this time of this era, so let's see what you've done. And like I said, I listened to their albums and I was like, this might be a new little listen of something new. Speaking of music, the other artists, which I like how they titled this story, by the way, and The Root isn't really one of my unique sources of stories, but this one I went ahead and gave them a pass. They gave her the title as Auntie Mary J. Blige. Mary J. Blige, as most of you all know, I did do her as an artist spotlight during Women's Month, and she brought out a new album, which I had almost forgot about. The name of the album, coincidentally, was the name of one of her songs on one of her albums a while back, called Strength of a Woman. And she just put, this was, okay, so this is a nanny story. I'm going to go ahead and give you this understanding. So this is for listeners too, so most of y'all probably get this. Anytime Mary J goes through a hurt or pain, it's going to show in an album. If the album isn't really doing its big traction, you'll be like, okay, Mary, what happened? You ain't go through something, so why does this album sound like trash? And that's basically what happened with this album. Like, she went through a lot of hurt involving her marriage, personal life, things of that sort, and you hear it in the album.
Yeah, my favorite song was the Set Me Free.
Set Me Free.
She kind of went at him.
Yeah, she put some stories out there that you really would like. It's like I said, it's some information she was definitely putting in people's ears about what she was talking about. Like, You and Me, I like You and Me. This is my, like, I like You and Me. I like Glow Up. Glow Up was an interesting song, especially because it was bringing Missy Elliott back for a moment, which I'm always excited about. Mm-hmm. And then number two, and believe it or not, this is probably going to surprise a lot of my listeners, Quavo or Migos, period. Like, anytime Migos is making an appearance in an album, I'm always unsure what to expect. But they actually had a good cameo in this song, so that's why Glow Up was one that I was into as well. So I have this, I have an article that talks about that as well. Pushing into our artist spotlight, which I can't believe I'm just not remembering, that I didn't do a story about Amy Winehouse. It's been 5-6 years since she passed. She was at the age of 27. Oddly enough, it was involving drugs, an overdose. Let me go back. It was accidental alcohol poisoning is what they stated was the reason of her death, and it was in July of 2011. I'm kind of giving the story backwards. She started her career at 16. She was more known, as a jazz vocalist. She had a different style. She had a different voice for music. That's kind of the most direct way of saying it. Mm-hmm. A lot of her music, she was brought up in England. Dad was a cab driver. Mom was a pharmacist. She wanted to find a way to kind of get herself out there. She was involved with jazz. She, linked and listened to a lot of music with artists such as James Taylor, Sarah Vaughan, TLC, Salt and Pepper. You know, she had this rebellious and an odd style to her listening. I'm glad nobody had. I'm sorry, random, and I'm like, I did this with one podcast. I'm looking out because I'm like, I know it's after 4:00, and I'm like, if somebody come in and say it's our time, I'll be like, just come on. I'm gonna wrap it up. I might just have them come on. Y'all can come on and talk too. But
you know Amy Winehouse.
Just come on, just chime in with Amy. She more so got her fame with being international. She brought out the album Back to Black. Back to Black was a big album. It brought out the song Rehab, of course, and it just was its own style. I'm like, please don't. I think that's the person. I don't know.
Yeah, she was. She had a lot of problems as well too, like, you know, with her life in general. That was going on outside of the music.
Yeah, with her marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. You're not gonna take the story and then not take it. I gave one word.
All right. And then she also set a record previously in 2008 when she had 5 Grammy wins. That's the most for a female artist. Until Beyonce took it, and then someone else had tied it as well too. Adele tied it in 2012.
Okay.
But she dealt with a lot with drugs, a lot of alcohol. You know, things of that nature. Rehab. If you know her story and you listen to the song, that Rehab song actually tells a lot about her, because her label wanted her to go actually into rehab, and
she was like, no, I'm not going.
Exactly. She ended up dropping that label and going somewhere else.
Yep.
And that's when she made the album Back in Black.
Yeah.
Another nice song off the album was actually Back in Black itself.
Yes, Back in Black was a good song off of there. And
a lot of her muse kind of for that song was her husband, or you could say ex-husband, Blake Fielder Silver.
Okay.
Civil.
Civil, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be like the one, and it just, you know, they eloped in May of 2007. She was, you know, she went through drug abuse, strange behavior. She overdosed on several drugs.
She had an overdose when she overdosed on like heroin.
Yeah.
Ketamine. She overdosed on a few different types of drugs.
Yeah, heroin, coke, ecstasy, ketamine, whiskey, and vodka. That's a lot. Like, and this is all, like, she had all of this going on, you know, while she was in London. So, I mean, it's, you know, anyone that talks about her, you always hear about knowing her for being in London. She was, her husband was arrested. He was basically bribing a bartender.
Because he had beat up the bartender,
yeah.
Broke like the jaw. Then he bribed him to not show up in court so he wouldn't get caught up for it.
Right.
But a lot of focus with her was like through the media was about her drug addiction.
Yes.
Or like they had a lot of domestic violence as well too. She was the abusive one.
Yeah.
But she was also a charitable person. I saw how she was involved with like over 20 charitable organizations and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Another crazy thing about her too is about 3 years before she died, she was always scared about the number 27, like dying at the age of 27.
Right.
3 years later,
So that was her number. So that was like her concern number. That's the 2% of learning, like her.
Because someone else like 17 years earlier had died. I forget what his name was. Cobain.
Kurt Cobain.
Kurt Cobain died 17 years earlier at the age of 27.
Okay.
So yeah, she was always scared about that as well too.
Guilty as charged. Normally, I'm always usually on my music research. This one I research kind of sporadic, but Amy hit for me because for 2 reasons. Her personal life, she was very transparent in how she was as a performer and as a person. And then after she passed, they brought out an album. It was like an unreleased album, and it was like they did like a documentary. It was like her like after she passed, she literally was a true meaning of what you call leaving a legacy at such a young age, in an early age in her career.
Yeah.
So that was the main hit of the main target of me sharing Amy Winehouse as the artist spotlight. So the last story, which is our famous favorite and our love that I always like doing, which is our Ass of the Week.
I believe one person in this Ass of the Week has been Ass of the Week a couple times on the show.
Yeah, he's a repeat offender.
Yeah.
So typically I always have like, you know, I always tell y'all like I have a tab of like, okay, let me read a story and talk about it. I don't need a tab for this because this story is going to be a mind-blowing breakdown. And I don't know if you know the other part of this, but I'm going to share it as well. As most of you all know, LeVar Ball is the father of Lonzo Ball, LiAngelo Ball, and LaMelo Ball. Well, they have a clothing line that's known as Big Baller Brand. They've made shirts, they've made shoes. Let me go back. They've made shirts, they've made sweaters, they've made hoodies. Well, Lonzo was turned down by some of the big names. I believe that was addressed in an episode from Adidas, Nike, and Under Armour. So they made the address and comment of saying, we're going to be bringing out our own shoe. Until that shoe was released, I was impressed to see that they were going to be bringing out their own shoe. The price tag of the shoe, now there are two prices. I don't know if you know this or not. There's $495. The shoe is $495 for the actual for the shoe itself. Mm-hmm. There's also an option that you can pay $995 for the shoe that's signed and it's in a case. I don't know if you know that or not. It's on Big Baller Brand's website. I may share that link in the show notes. More than likely I will, because if I go back and listen to it, it'll be a cliff note of a reminder. But yeah, that is the entertaining. Oh, and I'm sorry. Let me not leave out the important part. If you want a pair of Big Baller Brand slides, those are $220.
Only $220.
Okay. Yeah, only $220.
Okay. The shoes themselves, it'd be fair to say if those were maybe $220, that'd be more reasonable.
Yes.
The shoes, I kind of like the shoes actually myself.
The shoe, so
for $495.
Yeah, like the shoe, the design. I like the concept. Yeah. I like where it's going.
Coincidental
fact that a lot of people don't know is the logo that the team is using is the same logo that the Ohio State wide receivers use. I'm gonna find that link and I'm gonna make sure I share that with you all. It's gonna surprise you. While I'm talking about it, I know Demetrius gonna look that up because it's gonna surprise him when you really see how similar it's. Like if you look up Ohio State wide receivers, they have a symbol, or you put Ohio State Lonzo Ball, it'll come up. But they showed the actual logo, and I ain't gonna lie. When I looked at the logo, I'm a gamer, and my gaming side kicked in. I was like, why does this logo look like Overwatch? So there's another story to add to it, which is someone's already bought a pair.
I believe they've sold 5,000.
Really?
I believe they sold 5,000.
So I'll tell you a name of someone who bought a pair that's really going to surprise you.
Who?
Chad Johnson.
That's actually not that surprising. Well, because he has money. If you have money to blow,
he got money, but he got kids to take care of. Like
that is true. It's true.
I'm not downplaying it.
Like something that kind of like questions me is the fact that I understand that his dad's kind of putting down the money for it, kind of.
Right.
However, what if like the money starts to get too much or something like that? Like, is it worth putting like his dad putting up the money versus his son getting paid by Nike, by Adidas, by someone else?
Yeah.
And they produce a shoe. Like, I understand that you don't get you don't get your own shoe until later on. Like, Curry didn't get his own shoe until like after he won his first finals.
Right.
And Paul George didn't get his first shoe until like recently as well too. Like, sometimes it takes you a little while to get your own shoe. However, you can still make millions off of a shoe contract.
This is true.
So that part kind of questions me. And then $495, I understand that he's trying to. It creates a story, you know.
We're talking about it.
Now.
Yeah,
it creates a story itself.
I think everyone who has TV or has a podcast or a television show or a section has talked about these shoes.
I see what you mean.
Do you see the similarity in the logo?
I see it, but
it's not. I don't think it's going to be copyright.
I don't think it's copyright.
No, it's not. I just found it was a coincidence to how similar they are.
But I see where they're going with their own sign because Lonzo's nickname like in his family is Zoe.
Yeah, I got
it. There's like a Z inside of a circle, so it's like Zoe. So, but it's very similar. So I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Now here's the other part of it. Now I don't know if you know this or not. If you buy these shoes, you don't get them now.
When do you get them?
November.
So like, is he making the shoes like in his garage or something?
It's pre-release. They're pre-release shoes because if I remember the story correct, I know the ones that are the light up, the ones in the hologram container they won't be out until November 24th. And the first thing I'm thinking in my head is that's well after the basketball season starts. Like the NBA season starts in October, like usually around Halloween. Mm-hmm. So if you're not gonna have any shoes ready, but people are spending money to buy these shoes, so you said, all right, let me make some. If I'm pitting numbers, you said they made $5,000. No, I'm sorry, you said they 5,000 people have bought these shoes.
Because I haven't seen that. Actually, coincidence. I was watching The Jump actually.
Okay.
It was actually during the week, and I forget which person said it, but they said that they had sold 5,000 pairs already.
Okay, I mean, it's possible, but I'm just trying to figure out.
That's a high. I wouldn't expect it because I wouldn't, even if I had money, I wouldn't shelf out $495 for these shoes.
I mean, me personally, I mean, my budget, I've done like the 100 plus a couple of times, but not consistent enough.
400.
Not $495. No, I mean $495. I'm literally not gonna wear them.
Like, one thing that I found funny was LeVar Ball's Twitter, like his tweet.
Yeah.
Big ballers loose. If you can't afford the Zo2s, you're not a big baller.
But if you go, the sad part is, if you haven't done so already, go to Big Baller Brands website and just look at the apparel.
Remember I was telling you before the show that I saw a rundown of the prices compared to Jordan.
Yeah.
Short shirts, sweaters, shorts, and hats. And the Big Baller Brands were more than the Jordans.
Right. Like I don't understand why I'm paying for like $495. And then if I'm not mistaken, they don't have like color schemes. All they have is black. They haven't shown any other color schemes. And they only showed on the website.
You know what's funny though?
What's that?
They compare his father a lot to kind of like fathers who've spoken out a lot in the past, kind of like Serena Williams' father, Tiger Woods' father, Kobe's father, kind of a little bit too. But I'm saying all three of them are like memorable people.
Yeah.
So if he ends up turning out to be like memorable,
right,
then
it's a possibility. Yeah, that's true.
But still, $495.
I don't see it.
I saw another rundown of. Like Jordan's shoes, like his first signature shoe that was sold, Kobe's first signature shoe that was sold, and LeBron's. They fluctuated due to fluctuation.
Right.
So like in this era, they put the Jordans were like 145.
Yep.
Kobe's were 141.
Mm-hmm.
LeBron's were 145 as well too.
Yeah.
$495. So
just standing out like it's an odd off number. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I don't see me buying a pair, but I thought that was just a good way to come up with a legit ass of the week because he just failed on that one miserably.
I feel like he likes attention.
Yeah, and I get that. I mean, it's working because like you said earlier, and I'm gonna close it with this point. If you're not being talked about, then you're not doing something right in the media. And in the media's eyes,
publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, exactly. So they're feeding off of this like heavily. But I thank y'all for tuning in, and I'm not capping off the podcast in a bad way, but I was already late, and normally I'm always prepared and ready to go, but today life happens, and we got all the stories in.
Still made it work,
and believe it or not, it was under an hour. It was less than an hour, despite things being the way they were, me having to set up. I'm definitely gonna. I'm hoping next week I can get some good stories. I think we'll have the aftermath of the NBA Combine.
Couple series by then.
Yeah, I feel like Cleveland will sweep tomorrow.
You never know what else may come up.
Yeah, but we'll definitely get these stories rolling. Again, if you are interested in buying Big Baller Brand, I'll share the link in the bio or in the description because you might want a pair. And if you buy them, take a picture and send them to me because I would definitely share the fact that you bought them. Or send me the receipt. Send me the receipt. That'll be even better. Just scratch your name out. Just send me the receipt that you actually bought a pair. Dimitri, as always, I appreciate you being on the show. Next week, we're going to definitely have this thing rolling, and I'm going to do my best to be on time.
We'll try to both be on time.
All right, y'all take it easy. Did you make it to the end of the episode? If so, I do appreciate you listening and tuning in. These episodes get more and more valuable, and I do appreciate everyone taking time to sit down and listen to the episode. Whether you're actually listening to it once it's uploaded on Spreaker.com/Brate Podcast, or if you're downloading it and listening to it on your own convenience. If you want to check out any previous episodes, just check out that page. And if you'd like to inquire or provide any information or feedback or suggestions toward the podcast, please send those emails to passpodcastbt@gmail.com. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Enjoy your day. Have a good week and be positive.